Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5s. Let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Alien Romulus, number 2 would be Deadpool and Wolverine, number 3 would be It Ends With Us, number 4 would be Twisters, and then number 5 would be the Fathom event, Coraline 15th Anniversary re-release. And I got all 5 of my predictions right for this weekend. Hell fucking yes. Here are the people who got their predictions right as well. Congratulations. A lot of you did not have faith in Leica and Coraline, and I just, I kind of get it, but also, do better. Let's go over what happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 was Alien Romulus. And of course, I think a lot of you might be interested as far as like how is it doing compared to the other films in the franchise, and it's doing pretty well. As far as the opening weekend, it is actually the second highest opening in the franchise, unadjusted for inflation, so it opened to $41 million. The highest one was Prometheus. It opened $10 million below that film's opening weekend. So second highest, but not by like a huge margin or anything, kind of right where they kind of average out. And some of them are kind of different, like the first Alien, because it was the 70s and it was a new thing, it only opened to like 3 million on the domestic opening weekend, and also that's unadjusted for inflation. So yeah, it's just kind of the same, kind of pretty consistent right here. Worldwide, it opened to 108 million though, so working off of an initial production budget of 80 million, not bad at all. Pretty good, actually. They're on a pretty great course here. They only need 52 million more in order to double that initial production budget and make a little bit more than that. The thing about the last Alien movie that came out, Covenant, that kind of ended its gross a little over 200 million or 200, it's somewhere between 200, 250 million, somewhere around there. So if they can get to 240 million worldwide and triple that 80 million initial production budget, that would obviously be a lot better for them, and I can kind of see that happening now with this kind of number. So pretty good start for this one. It has already outgrossed Alien vs. Predator Requiem by a couple 100,000, needs 6 million now until it outgrosses Resurrection, and then worldwide it needs 20 million until it outgrosses Requiem. So, not, easily outgrossing every film yet, but it'll work up there for sure, or it could be a Quiet Place Day One situation where, well, not exactly like that, but maybe even though it has the second highest opening for the franchise, it may not be like the highest grossing one. We'll just see how it goes. We'll see how the word of mouth is doing. Next weekend, it's not looking too crowded. Like, there's movies coming out, but I just don't know how much waves they will make. I'm not sure how strong the marketing or word of mouth has been for any of them. So let's move on to number 2, which is Deadpool and Wolverine. For the first time, not number 1 at the box office. It's been 3 weekends now, and it's finally been dethroned by Aliens. Of course, Deadpool and Wolverine is already breaking so many records. We'll talk about that right now. It made 29 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 545 million. They are 15 million away from tripling that alleged 200 million initial production budget, but more importantly, they are about 78 million away from outgrossing the original Avengers film, and then they'll be in the top 5 MCU highest grossing films domestically. Worldwide, it is sitting at 1.142 billion. So for the R-rated films ranking worldwide, it has finally outgrossed Joker by 78 million, so it is now officially the highest grossing R-rated film of all time, both worldwide and domestically. Of course, I prematurely called that like a week or 2 ago, and I've corrected it since, and now we're actually here. So there you go. We made it. For the MCU worldwide, it has outgrossed Captain Marvel by 13 million, and Spider-Man Far From Home by 10 million. It's sitting behind Civil War now by 9 million, so it'll be outgrossing that shortly. But now that places it at the number 9 highest grossing MCU worldwide runs of all time. So it's in the top 10, it's at number 9. It's about to get to number 8. It's really climbing up in the ranks, I've talked enough about this. The only thing we really needed to highlight here was that it was dethroned finally, and that it finally is the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. So we're done. I have nothing else to add other than, people are having fun with this still, and that's cool to see. Number 3 is It Ends With Us, and I was wondering about this as far as like, is there going to be a massive drop off, or are people still interested to see it? And it dropped off about 52% from what I remember on the site. So a pretty average kind of drop off. There was never a point where it was going to have a fantastic hold where it beat Deadpool and Wolverine in my eyes. Like, I couldn't see that happening, but I could see like a pretty big drop off where like fans of the book talk front loaded the opening weekend and then it just kind of dips off. But obviously not the case here. It just had a pretty normal kind of percentage drop off, making 24 million this weekend, so that now adds to a domestic domestic total of $97 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $179 million. So for Justin Baldoni's directed films, it has outgrossed 5 Feet Apart by $87 million now. So it's his highest grossing film domestically and now worldwide. So there you go. It is also, it is interesting to see that there wasn't like a massive drop off or even like a fantastic holdover just based off of the internet drama, or at least as far as like what we can tell by the numbers, the internet drama going on behind the scenes of this movie. It's a little too much and a little too vague at the same time as far as like, you know, what potentially is happening that no one is officially talking about. So you can look into that on your own if you even want to choose to believe that or whatever. But you know, it whatever talk behind this film, it doesn't seem like it's getting people to go back for more or, you know, convince other people to see it or to like avoid the film altogether. It's just kind of normal movie stuff. You know, a lot of conversations just happen online and never, you know, impact real real people's opinions or interest in movies or anything like that. So there you go. Congrats. It ends with us. Number 4 is Twisters, making $9 million, adding to a domestic total of $238 million. So it is only $3 million away now until it outgrosses the original film domestically. Worldwide, it is sitting at $326 million. Last weekend we talked about how it, you know, doubled its $155 million initial production budget, and I had been talking about how it's kind of on the road of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes run. You know, totally respectable, decent kind of box office run. It is sitting $169 million away from the original. So domestically, this is obviously a way bigger hit than it is anywhere else, but you know, they doubled their budget and they're making a little bit more than that. You know, the fact that they're going to outgross the original film domestically, at least unadjusted for inflation, I think will be the more interesting talking point for some people. You know, I don't know if that necessarily means we're going to get like a whole bunch more Twister movies, because it's kind of like, I don't know how much more you get out of the premise before you veer into territory that people who love this movie and maybe even the original, you know, you veer into territory that they won't follow you for. Maybe it just means more bigger budget, like natural disaster weather kind of movies. Who knows? And maybe Lee Isaac Chung can make another original film instead of just something with an IP attached to it. Number 5 is Coraline, the re-release by Fathom Events 15-year anniversary, remastered with a 3D. I saw it and I was in a theater with a bunch of people. Like, it was a pretty packed theater, and obviously I can't speak for every other place that had this movie or every other theater that was even playing in my area, but I could just tell, yeah, I made the right decision predicting this to get at least in the top 5. People were really lit up about seeing it again. You know, as soon as the movie started and they were showing off the 3D that they were doing, people were like oohing in the crowd. So it was kind of like, yeah, this is something really special for some people. You know what I mean? People have grown up with this film, and it's part of their love of film. So being able to experience that in the theater, whether they had before or not, that's special. And when they played the teaser for Wildwood, their new film, even though it's only like a minute, if that, people were lit up about that too. Like when it ended, I heard people going like, "That looks really good. Yeah, I can't wait to see that one." So, you know, the future of stop motion and Leica might be looking even brighter than it ever has before, which is exciting. Anyways, I have not talked about how much it made. Made $8 million this weekend, so overall for every other time it's been released, including its original, it adds to a domestic total of $86 million, and then worldwide it is sitting at $137 million, so bumped up a little bit more from when it ended its original theatrical run and some other re-releases I'm sure they had along the way. I'm sure that must surprise some people. As much as I was talking up how much people, you know, love the film, a lot of it kind of comes from watching it after the fact and, you know, discovering it years later, because I don't know if we've ever talked about it on this show. Maybe we did when like Missing Link came out in 2019. But the Leica films, you know, they don't really do like amazingly at the box. I think Coraline, you know, did the best for them, or is still doing the best for them. You know what I mean? And as you can see right here, it only just barely doubled its $60 million initial production budget. So yeah, like that's why I was kind of talking up earlier. The future looks a little bit brighter, just as far as there are fans out there that want to see this, and there are even some parents bringing in some like their younger kids, probably have never seen it at home before. This might have been their first time, and maybe that'll open their love for this art form and see more films like this. I don't know, just something to think about, I guess. Some things to be hopeful for. Thanks, Leica. Number 6 is Despicable Me 4, making $6 million, adding to a domestic total of $340 million. So it is domestically outgrossed Minions by $4 million. It is now sitting $28 million behind Despicable Me 2. But of course, now this does place it at the number 3 spot for the highest grossing domestic runs for this specific franchise. So once it outgrosses 2, which even though it has been losing a little bit of momentum, it still could hold over well enough to make that $28 million. It could potentially be the second highest grossing for the entire franchise. Worldwide, it is sitting at $847 million, so $90 million away from outgrossing Rise of Gru. It still hasn't done that yet, but it has, if you've been noticing, it has been collecting a lot more money worldwide as these weeks pass by. It's pretty interesting, actually, to note, like, it's not just like small little increase, like with Twisters, it's like small little increases to the worldwide numbers, but with Despicable Me 4, it's like, no, that's a sizable chunk, and Despicable Me 4 has been out a little longer than Twisters even. So that's been interesting to know. It still has a ways to go until it outgrosses Rise of Gru worldwide, but still, like, it's making that money, making that money. Number 7 is Trap, making $3.4 million, adding to a domestic total of $35 million. It has, for Blinding Edge Pictures domestically, made a couple $100,000 more than Knock at the Cabin. It sits behind Lady in the Water by $7 million. Could potentially do that next week, maybe the weekend after, but at the very least, it has the potential to outgross Lady in the Water domestically. And then worldwide, it is sitting at $62 million. So for Blinding Edge, it is $8 million over Knock at the Cabin, and then it needs $10 million until it outgrosses Lady in the Water. But I think more importantly, because we talked about how the initial production budget was $30 million for the film, it has crossed over the doubling point of that. So I think it's safe to say we're in a pretty good spot as far as like making its money back and making a little bit more of a profit off of it. May not be the biggest thing in the world. And some people will also say like, well, the doubling thing isn't always an exact science. I've even said that before too with certain movies. But I saw a post by M. Night Shyamalan where he himself celebrated how they crossed over 62 million, and I feel like that means something, is all I'm saying. So I think they're in a pretty good spot, so that's good. Some people will still go out to see an original thriller or horror film, anything like that, and that's cool. Even if it doesn't make a shit ton of money, it's still enough to get people invested, and maybe they'll, have their appetites whet for more, keep cinema alive and shit. Number 8 is Inside Out 2, making $3.2 million, adding to a domestic total of $642 million. So for the all-time domestic runs list, it has outgrossed Barbie by a couple $100,000. It needs $10 million until it outgrosses Jurassic World's number 10 spot, and then it's, in the top 10 list domestically. I think I mentioned the Barbie stat last weekend, or maybe I didn't. I don't fucking remember. Anyways, worldwide, it is sitting at $1.625 billion, so it is still behind the Lion King 2019's spot in the all-time worldwide list, but now only by $21 million, so we'll be seeing that happening at any point now, which, good. As far as like Disney making up the entirety of the top 10 all-time grossing list, it's a little weird, sure, but at least it's a better movie. Like, a better movie is making more than Lion King 2019. I mean, Lion King 2019 shouldn't have made this fucking much in the first place. Will Mufasa make this much? Honestly, I don't know. Because like we've seen how Little Mermaid didn't like light the world on fire and crack $1 billion, and they put money into that would have suggested they thought they were going to make $1 billion. But The Lion King made so much money, but that doesn't mean that people are necessarily hyped out of their minds to see Mufasa. It's been a couple years. I don't think that many people are as excited for this as they were the original even. So I don't know. I do not know, but we'll there's a time and place for that later in the year. Number 9 is Borderlands. Oh my god, making $2.3 million, adding to a domestic total of $13 million. It is sitting behind Hostel Part 2 by $4 million, so still a little ways to go before it advances even further in the Eli Roth filmography. It's not going to do much more. We do have a little bit of worldwide total. It is still going to be nowhere near to doubling that $120 million initial production budget. It is only sitting at $21 million worldwide. So it has outgrossed Knock Knock by $15 million and The Green Inferno by $9 million. It also needs $9 million until it outgrosses Cabin Fever. So, man, this movie really sunk, didn't it? It opened at like what, number 4 or 5 last weekend was one of the numbers there, and it's already at number 9. People are not interested in this, and it didn't even open great last weekend, and even the holdover isn't great. God damn. And finally, closing out the video, number 10, Stree 2. I don't know what this is. I didn't even see this one on like the Fandango thing. Maybe it wasn't playing, or maybe I wasn't looking hard enough. No, I was. Never mind. It made 2.1 million this weekend, though. This is on a budget of 50 crore. There's no other worldwide totals that I could find as of right now, so this is all I got. That's the end of the video. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5, and it will be a little fun. I don't know what's going to happen next week, and genuinely, I do not know. There's plenty of like smaller movies coming out, movies with like a more niche audience, movies that probably don't have an audience because they haven't been marketed very well. So I really don't know what's going to be in the top 5, what's going to, dominate, hold over, whatever. But here are my predictions. I think number 1 will be Alien Romulus once again. I think number 2 will be Deadpool and Wolverine, and then number 3, It Ends With Us. I think the top 3 will remain the same. I don't think they're going to drop all that much. But number 4, I think, will be The Crow. Just, some people might recognize it's based off of that. I think out of everything that's coming out, this has the most marketing, or it's been marketed the most. People know Bill Skarsgård, so maybe, you know what I mean? It's based off a thing that came before. There's a little bit of infamy surrounding that production, so maybe number 4. And the number 5, I think, will be Blink Twice. With low numbers, obviously. I don't expect any of these to, blow up the box. It would be great if, like, another original thriller, lit up the box office or anything like that. But I don't see that happening. But, leave room for the impossible these days. But we'll see. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.